Hello, welcome to All United WFC. We promised a WSL preview and we're giving you one, and this is going to be quite an interesting show. I don't quite know where, well, I know exactly where we're going to start. So I'm going to come straight to Emma in a second with the big news of the day that's been rumbling on all. So I think, Emma, you came on a show for the Lionesses way back when we were talking about Keira Walsh, like before the Euros, and it was rumbling around then. So get all your thoughts in all the comments. We're going to talk about each team individually. We could have had a Spurs fan on, but realistically, they're probably not going to push for the top three, are they? So we kind of left them out of this conversation. But the big news of the day, we're going to dive straight into the one player that's splashed across every headline at the moment. World record fee. The fee transfer record has been broken again. Might get broken again, potentially. We shall see. But Emma, I want to come to you in terms of just Keira Walsh in isolation, moving to Barcelona, what that means and what City are losing with Keira obviously leaving the team.
Yeah, I think obviously simply what we've seen across the summer is probably Keira Walsh. She's one of the most underrated players of the last sort of few years, really. She's just a player that plays beyond her years. And I know obviously in the shows that we've done across the summer that we've spoken about her quite fondly, and I am just quite feeling it at the minute, feeling a bit raw about it, just because, like you said, it's been rumbling on for so long, but the fact is now that it's done and dusted as well, and obviously she's put into paper and that deal's done, and we've just lost a real core player, part of the squad. Keira Walsh pulls a lot of strings within the City squad, and she's one of those players where players can be replaced without doubt, but she is one of those where you just think, God, there isn't really anyone quite like Keira Walsh who could replace her in that way, shape or form. So it's certainly a bit of a blow, especially heading into the weekend, obviously with the season getting underway on Saturday. Some fans are obviously delighted, I'm sure. It's actually come to fruition now. Overall, as a City fan today, you're feeling disappointed in that one.
No, 100%. And Rob and Meg, I want to get your thoughts on this one as well. But there's some love for you, Emma, in the comments already. The one person I have full respect for is a City fan. Good on you for coming on. To be fair, if we'd lost 2-0, I don't think I'd be doing a show that same day or something like that. So fair play to you.
I was like, I'll do a pull out. I was like, can I bring tonight? Anyway, I've got the drink. Let's go.
I was thinking, I was like, what if it gets announced during this show? Thank God I think it got announced earlier in the day, because that could be something.
Yeah, I mean, they literally couldn't drag it out for too much longer. I think everybody just wanted it done and dusted, and the next 24 hours are going to be quite interesting in that respect.
No, 100%. Yehuda, I can see you comment talking about Rob's thread on City. We're going to get to that in a second, because I want Rob to give his thoughts on City as a whole a little bit more. But Rob, for yourself, just the Keira Walsh deal, like Emma said there, it's been going on for a while. From an outsider looking at City, I mean, it's one of the best players in the league gone, isn't it? Obviously, it's good from a United, Chelsea, and Arsenal point of view that City are getting weaker, but from a league's point of view, you don't really want your best players in the league going abroad. You'd rather them, I guess, sticking around over here.
No, precisely that. You'll recall when we did our, albeit I was very dishevelled, show after we won the Euros. I came on and I said, Keira Walsh was my standout player at the tournament. I think Walsh is one of those players that you don't necessarily notice her when she's on the pitch. She's not flashy, she's not showy, but when she's not there, she sticks out like an absolute sore thumb. From a rival point of view, it's great. Honestly, looking at that City side now, looking at the core that's been pulled out of there, it looks nowhere near as terrifying as it used to last year. But from a league point of view, which is ultimately what I'm going to, try and take us, despite what people seem to think I am impartial towards City, I actually quite like Manchester City compared to the other two sides we're discussing here. It's a bad thing for the league to lose one of the star players, but also one of the star players for the country. Like, you rarely see a lot of star German internationals leaving Germany. You rarely see a lot of the star Spanish internationals leaving Spain. A few of them do leave France, but again, a lot of them are still in France. It's not a good thing in that regard. Personally, I have to commend Keira Walsh on the fact she has gone to try a new experience. I'm not necessarily sure Barcelona can be described as the most taxing of footballing experiences. I do think it's a bit like starting a race, but having a starting a marathon, but having a 16-mile head start. But I really am keen to see how she does, and especially with Alexia sort of out for the season, or at least not going to be fit until the early part of next year. It'll be really curious to see how Walsh takes up the baton. And, ultimately it is, City's loss really is Barcelona's game.
No, and Meg, your thoughts on this one. Rob, you made a very good point there in terms of the talents of the national side don't tend to leave the country. You mentioned Spain and Germany. They don't. I'm trying to think of big names that have maybe moved.
Stanway.
Yeah, potentially.
I think Tony Duggan, though, was one of the original, when you look sort of back a few seasons, she was kind of the big move at that time where, you've seen that transition of, like, as you say, like, English players making that switch to, playing abroad as well.
And to me, I would definitely say it's a good thing. Like, I think it can only be a good thing both for the players and to encourage them. I've said it in the men's game, like when I've seen some of the youngsters at Chelsea go abroad and do things. I love seeing players being brave and going out and doing that, because ultimately it enriches them and develops them as a player. And Keira Walsh will learn a lot about her game by going and playing in Spain and playing in a different league and a different culture and different surroundings.
Yeah, definitely.
No, 100%. Meg, what's your thoughts on this Keira Walsh deal? As you mentioned, 400,000 is the fee that's getting banded about. There was a couple of news stories about that she was chipping in. I don't believe in those kind of things that got easily corrected afterwards by journalists and things like that. But what's your kind of thoughts on the deal? Because it's been going for. I think you were on the line as you showed pre-tournament, and we were talking about Walsh as well.
Yeah, I think someone's just put it in the chat below that she wouldn't join any other WSL club. So if she was to have made a move, it was going to be abroad. And obviously it's been going on for so long that I'm sure City fans were either like, just sort of get the deal done and get her gone, or get her staying. And I think if she did stay, it might not have been the best, option for her. And she's really gained sort of consistency, obviously last season, and then continuing into the Euros. And I just hope that she can prove that over in Barcelona as well. As Rob said, with Putellas going to be out for a good chunk of the season, she'll hopefully, be a regular starter. So hopefully we can see that consistency that she's really shown in the past few years.
No, 100%. Sang, you've got an ally in Rob with you today, because usually you're fighting the Chelsea cause in the comments every single show that we do. So you've got a Chelsea fan to back you up. We're going to talk about Chelsea a little bit later on, because I don't particularly want to, because I just feel like they're going to win everything. So there we are. But we'll get back to that. We're going to do this in a little bit of an order. So
at least the feeling's mutual on that one.
Honestly, when we did the Man United show on Monday night, we were kind of just talking about it and just ignore Chelsea. We were just pretending that they don't exist in the league, because I think that squad is that good. It's just Chelsea, the rest. We'll talk about the league as a kind of divided.
Unfortunately, that's what it's like, isn't it?
Yeah, not looking. But we'll talk about Chelsea a little bit later. I want to stay with City for the first section. A lot of comments and questions for yourself, Emma, in terms of how much you think will City dip, will City challenge this season, all those kinds of things. I want to talk to you into what you think it's been like. Well, what it's been like for you as a City fan, seeing the squad change this summer, because it's, as an outsider looking in, it's there's another one going, there's another one. Like the whole midfield has been torn out of the squad. How are you kind of feeling going into the season now after seeing the window that City have had?
I'm ready for the window to close. I can pretty much say that. It's been a bit difficult, but I think what's come, to fruition with the players that have left is that some of them were surprised, but I think the rumblings obviously did come toward the end of the season as well. So there were some players there that obviously you kind of knew, the likes of Weir and Stanway were looking at, the possibility of moving and weighing up their options and stuff, and obviously throw Lucy in there as well. And it's been a bit difficult, especially when you lose players such as Stanway that have given and offered so much longevity to the club as well, and obviously now you're throwing Weir in there as well. Walsh in there as well. It is hard to take. The way we rounded up the podcast for Man City Women last season was that regardless of what happened, City would look like a completely different side next season, and obviously that is the case now. I'm trying to draw on the positives, because obviously I'm excited by the international players that we brought in. I'm excited to see what they can do. It is going to be an almost fresh approach. I think this season will be seen as a bit of a transitional period. I'm not expecting much, I'll be honest. I think obviously we've started poorly already. If you bring obviously the Champions League into the mix, and I feel like we've wasted the fight that we gave last season in terms of that halfway point and then really battling on for that third place position. We've just thrown it away, which is really frustrating because that's the second time that we've done that now, and I do not want another season potentially where we could well be in the same position and having the same sort of battles come.
Can't tell whether Emma's froze there or whether that was an ending of a statement.
Is it gone?
No, I think
my feelings on it is that players, for me, deserve better, and if they feel that they will get better opportunities playing elsewhere, and fair play to them, I wish them well. And the likes of Stanway, I'm sure, will light up Bundesliga, and I'm excited to see what they can do on a European stage.
No, interesting points there. Meg, I want to come to you first because I want to come to Rob last on this because, as someone's already mentioned, I want Rob to get into his thread in just a short while on Man City. So, Emma, I think cover your ears when Rob's talking on that one. But I guess, Meg, for yourself, how are you kind of looking at City now after the window they've had? Lost a lot, as Emma said, they lost a lot of players. No Champions League again, obviously not qualifying, and a former player knocking them out as well, which obviously is just adds insult to injury, really. How are you kind of looking at City from an outsider's point of view going into next season? Are they still a threat, do you think, to the top three?
I think if I was asked this at the end of the season when City massively picked up form, I would have been saying, they could probably challenge for top three, and I would probably say I was a bit scared of them. But looking at the transfer window they've had, and they've lost nearly their entire midfield, and they haven't yet brought in anyone to replace Walsh. So compared to, Man U, I'm not as scared as I am of City than I am of maybe Man U this season.
Interesting, I like that. Charlie's put a good comment. I'm glad I don't have to worry about Stanway drop kicking United players in the throat anymore after the tackles, particularly on Galton last season. Oh, there we go. I like it. That's why I like this panel. Hairline score's gone. It was 5 on Monday, I think it was. Emma's gone. She wasn't happy with that. But
I mean, the amount of flack I've got about my bloody haircut over the summer, I'm just anything, that's a delightfully high score for me off the amount of flack I've got over the summer.
Sang's always, every time I'm on the show, it doesn't get above like a 5 or a 6. My haircut's tomorrow, so hopefully next time I'm on next Monday, it should go up. Hopefully, Sang, you give me like a high 8. Oh, well, there we go. So,
the worst thing I've had over the summer was someone said to me, "You look like the Todd Bowley from Wish.com." And that's the most bizarre random insult I've had, and it's just stuck with me all summer. So,
jeez, it's probably a good time to bring you in then while Emma's dropped out for a second to talk about your thread that you put. A very interesting read about Man City women and what's happening there. So go on, I'll let you just have the floor on what you think's happened over there.
Well, I mean, I was told by City fans I don't know what I'm talking about. So, anyone feel free, if you don't want to listen to me, feel free to go make a cup of tea, do your Sudoku, have some biscuits, because clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. But I boiled it down into a few key points because someone asked me for a summary because they said they saw a 20-thread tweet and thought, I'm not going to read that, even though it's by you. And they were very kind to DM me and tell me this. Taylor's lost the dressing room. The recruitment is extremely, extremely erratic. There's no clear pattern around it. Young players feel scapegoated. The manager himself has put him on a pedestal, immune to criticism, and no journalist seems to be willing to pull him up out on that, which is why I bothered doing it. And at least, said, hey, maybe we could ask this question. And I think, in general, it just means I think City are in a real difficult place because the WSL is not getting any easier. I do think there is something of a concern this season that Chelsea might run away with it. I don't necessarily think they will, but I think there is something of a concern of it. But certainly below Chelsea, I think you've got a lot of clubs that are all looking at those 2 Champions League spots and thinking, these are up for grabs now. United, with the strengthening they've done over the summer, I mean, they could still tomorrow. There is still possibility they may lose someone still tomorrow. because the window still isn't closed, and there is still transfers going on. But I think United are going to be relatively pleased because I think they definitely have strengthened. Arsenal haven't necessarily, I think, strengthened, but they've not got any worse. And I think the fact that they've kept Miedemeier at the club is a huge boost. I think that's probably worth one or two transfers. Hurtig will come in and do well. I think she's an upgrade on the key to Paris. I don't know much about the new goalkeeper, but again, I understand that they're probably going to be a backup and sort of good pressure. But the main thing I think from Arsenal's perspective is you've got people like Ford and other players at Arsenal who look like they might have been on their way that have stuck around, and there's still sort of a strong squad there. I'd say when I watched Spurs in pre-season against Chelsea, I was really impressed by their number 9. She is absolutely massive. She is a proper definition of a target forward, but I can see her really, really causing problems to teams. And she was very good at holding the ball up. She gave a real sort of going over against Jess Carter, and really did bully her at times in the sort of the game, and looks like the sort of player that with a bit of quality in and around her. I think Everton, you've got to expect them to do better as well this season. So I think everyone below that, to be honest, is expecting, and Liverpool, I think, won't be any mugs. I don't think they will be, the whipping boys that I know some United fans would quite like them to be. I don't think they will be. So I think everyone, below Chelsea is probably there to sort of be concerned about their spot. I will say for City, from one positive point of view, I do think they've got plenty of goals in them, as long as they use Bunny Shaw effectively. They've got Mary Fowler, who I think is a very, very good player, and there's Hempen Kelly. So it could be a case they move more towards the Argentinian sort of system of, you score 1, we'll score 4, and they sort of sack off any kind of defending. Whether that sort of will happen or not remains to be seen. The big concern for me, I think, from a City POV, is that if the season starts poorly again, and then you decide to sort of sack Taylor mid-season, which I do think could happen, there's no obvious person. Someone said to me Jane Ludlow for sort of steadying the ship, but I don't think she's someone who'd want to come in and be a long-term replacement, and I don't think there's any obvious long-term candidates that would come into City and want to rebuild the squad. I think there are managers in the WSL that are talented young managers that will want to come in with a developed squad there and with a squad in place, but I don't see anyone in the WSL who really is going to come in and build something.
No, I tend to agree with that. And I think looking at it from an outside point of view, from my perspective, looking at City, yes, they've lost quite a few players, brought a couple of players in as well. I don't think they're, some people say, that they're finished, they're out of it. They're not. I hate to say it, and I've got to be semi-neutral when I'm trying to host this. But looking at it from a United point of view, yes, it's a bigger chance for us. And when we talk about United a little bit later on, it is a bigger or a better chance, I think, than last season was, despite obviously City having injuries. But Emma, throwing it back to yourself, just kind of rounding off the kind of City talk in particular, have your expectations changed now going into next season with what you've seen this summer, or are you still expecting, pushing into the top 3 and going on cup runs and that kind of thing?
I don't. It's a real hard one because I think Rob there talks about goals, where the goals are going to come from, and I think last season we saw that City did have a spray of goals within them, and I think that will be kind of a similar story for City this season. I don't think we'll be looking to any one player in particular to be contributing the goals. However, I would love to see Bunny in the monthly action a little bit more, and I hope she does get her opportunity to have a moment and really show what she can do within the side and cement herself really as a regular starter, because I feel that within her she's got it, week in, week out to deliver in that respect. I think, look, we've got Arsenal first game of the season, we've got Chelsea a couple of games later. In terms of the run of games, it's really looking difficult, and I think the Sunday game will be a true marker as to where we're at. And I think we're a bit off it, to be fair. I think we'll probably have the slow start. I think that's to be expected. And I think it'll take us a while to bed into the season. Let's not forget that, we've got a lot of players that are playing in this league for the first time. Change of environment, change in style of play. There are a lot of things that come into that. And I'm not making excuses, because these are, professional players that should be able to adapt in these sort of environments as well. And I don't want to see us making excuses. Last season it was injuries. This time it's a new team. We've lost core players, and I really don't want to see us doing that. So in terms of what I expect this season, top 3 obviously, but I don't know. I don't know if like you said, Rob says, we don't get the results, and essentially, we look to, actually acknowledge now that it's not working with Taylor. Do we then look at obviously seeing the rest of the season as an opportunity to get somebody in to, work with the players that we've got and then, really give it a good go next season? We need to push our expectations higher in terms of a club and what we should expect as fans. I think, we've underachieved. We've had cup success, but is that enough? It's every season to just have a really good cup run in a Conti Cup or an FA Cup when we want to be playing in Europe and going far. We've shown that we can do it, and we've just not delivered on the expectations. And players will want that as well. So I think it's actually pushing on now and saying, look, things need to change. We need to start delivering. We need to not say that we want to achieve these things, but actually start doing it.
No, I tend to agree with that, especially when you look at the teams. Obviously, United, you're looking at the other teams that are catching up. The league at some point, I imagine.
Everyone's pushing. Everyone's improving. And I feel at the moment we're bang average team. I hope that opinion changes. And obviously, I do hope that the new players come in and give a good case, to make themselves starters within that team and important part of the process that we're going to go through this season, because I do feel that it's going to be difficult. I do feel it's going to be difficult. Chelsea are pushing on, and you can't overlook obviously Emma Hayes and the work that she does and how she manages to keep those players happy, and that winning mentality that doesn't just obviously filter through from the top, it filters through all the players right down to the bottom too. So we need a bit of that too, and I'm hoping that fresh attitude, fresh approach will instill some really good wins within the team that will give us the confidence I think that we're going to need to have to grow within the season.
There's a question for you, Emma, I want to come back to, but Rob, there's a question further up. I've left it for quite a while, and it is a Chelsea-related question. Don't know if you want to answer it, but I'll throw it at you anyway.
I can answer as much as I can say it, in that Chelsea are trying very hard. Keira wants the move. Deadline day is obviously tomorrow. It requires a couple of things to fall into place, but as of this afternoon, Chelsea were still, pushing at it. Interestingly, they do have a plan B if Keira doesn't come off, who I think is a really interesting player. It's someone with a release clause who they could, trigger quite quickly. But certainly Keira is the priority. I am told it is a case, though, that Chelsea do also feel they could revisit the deal in January. And they feel that if they couldn't get something done, they could wait until January and get something done in January for the player, because, again, it's quite clear she wants to leave Paris Saint-Germain. And indeed, in January, it might also be easier for them to get a replacement in. So I think it's more of a case Chelsea would like to do it if they can, but it's more of a case of, at the moment, it's sort of how can we elevate the window from a 9 to a 10 rather than we need to replace X, as similar to, how City are with Walsh.
Yeah, let's be real. It's not like you need, any more players. It's not like Chelsea are struggling for top talent in their team. So if it doesn't get over the line, I'm not going to be sat there going, "Oh no, what a shame." But Emma, just very quick before we move on to Arsenal, and then we're going to look at Chelsea in a bit more detail as well. The final question on City: what would be a successful season for you?
Finishing top 2. So we don't have to go for this rigmarole of the Champions League next season.
Yeah, well, I think that's what everyone was, isn't it? Trying to break in, obviously, into the top 2, trying to push Chelsea a little. I know Arsenal, it went to the final day last season, but I think when you look at Chelsea, it was never really in doubt. It was down for 45 minutes, though, Rob.
Trust me, it was very much in doubt at times on that bloody final day.
So I was quite enjoying that for 45 minutes, and then Chelsea decided to show up in the second half and completely turn us over. But we don't talk about that because that's not going to happen this year, which I'll get to my predictions in a second. So we'll move on to Arsenal then, because they've had, in contrast to City, a pretty quiet window. I'm just looking now at the ins. As you mentioned, Hurtig's probably is the standout, and then as you mentioned earlier, Robert goalkeeper, a couple of outgoings as well. Obviously, the Keira Paris has obviously come to us. But Meg, from your point of view, from Arsenal, how are you kind of feeling going into the season as watching on from an Arsenal point of view? Because I said not too many transfers, but as Rob rightly said earlier, keeping Miedemar as well.
I think at the start of the window, it was good to see a lot of the key players signing new contracts. I was really looking forward to that. But then I was sort of hoping to see more than one, really standout signing. I don't think it's going to hinder our season. I think Miedemar staying is absolutely massive. I think obviously if she did go and we didn't get someone in to replace her, then that would have left a massive hole. But I've sort of got the same expectation that I did at the start of last season, because as Rob said earlier, we've not necessarily massively improved the squad, but it's not got any worse. So I'm hopeful, but there's also always that bit of doubt in the back of my mind that, we probably won't push for the WSL title because, of the signings Chelsea have made in the squad they've already got. But you never know.
You're not going to challenge because United are going to challenge. That's what it is. But Thanks, but there we're shopping for. Is Russo available? Every United fan will be hunting you down. I think. And yeah, stay clear of Russo. Yeah, rightly so. There, not a chance. Charlie's weighed in on the Arsenal discussion. Definitely starts seeing from the same vein of performances have been for England. Yeah, no, 100% agree with that.
I totally agree.
Rob, for yourself, how are you looking at Arsenal? As you said, they're keeping Miedemar is obviously a key point, but not too many incomings. Obviously, a couple of them went elsewhere, which was an interesting talk.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting because Arsenal had a transfer list of 5 targets, and all 5 of them have gone elsewhere. Hurtig was originally the backup to Geisa Ferreira, who went to Barcelona. They asked Khadija Buchanan if she was available, and she said she joined Chelsea. Idaval rang up Jelena Kankovic, and she joined Chelsea. Idaval rang up Jo Ritting-Canarid, and she joined Chelsea. I can't remember who the final one was, but they also didn't join Arsenal. It's a bit odd, I think, that Arsenal did really well last season, and yet a lot of players don't want to go there. And I was, quite told, quite honestly, by someone that a lot of it is due to the management sort of there. But to be honest, I think Arsenal are going to be the usual Arsenal I'm used to having, of that even if they're playing badly, they will grind out results. Inevitably, even if she hits a patch of poor form, as soon as we play us, Beth Mead will turn into the greatest player on earth again, and probably score a hat trick. They've got Palova from Ajax who re-signed a deal at Ajax after speaking to Jonas Eidevall. I'm starting to see a bit of a pattern here. But it is I think Arsenal will be there or thereabouts. To be honest, they're the team I think are probably closest to challenging us if they can stay fully fit. I do think they've got some slight issues with squad depth. Certainly, I do think in the fullback areas, if they lose people like Catley for a long period of time, but then again, good quality fullbacks is a commodity that's rare, seldom found in football. I do think Blackstenius, Rafaela, Wienreuter, all having had a pre-season, they will be more impactful. I was really impressed by Laura Wienreuter in the Euros in the summer. And at the end of the day, they are a very good side. I suppose my one concern, if I was an Arsenal fan, thank goodness I'm not, my one concern from that perspective would be that I do think the defence does somewhat go to pieces if Leah Williamson isn't around. And whereas last year Chelsea did discover that even if Magda Eriksson wasn't around, there is something called rotation, and you can also give other defenders you can bring in other experienced defenders. And I think that's exactly why Chelsea have gone for Khadija Buchanan, because it's a defender on the same level as Eriksson and Bright. Arsenal, I do feel if you lose Leah Williamson, not only do you lose that defensive ability, you lose that extra leadership in the side. Obviously, you've got Kim Little as the captain, and she is an incredible leader. But you've also got Leah Williamson, who effectively is a de facto second captain on the pitch. And again, it's sort of evident how different Arsenal defend in games when they've got Leah Williamson compared to, say, the FA Cup final last year, the first one against Chelsea, when the 2021 final, as it technically was, where Leah Williamson wasn't around and they conceded early and sort of defensively just went to pieces. So I do think that's my sort of concern. But yeah, no, they'll be. I'm more worried about them than United, and I'll happily say that. I'm more worried about them than United.
I'm going to be defending United to the hilt later on in this when we get round to them. It's weird though with Arsenal because from a United point of view, they're the one team I fear the least in the top three. Obviously, City have lost a lot of players, but United traditionally over the last couple of years have done all right. Particularly last season did all right against Arsenal. Should have won the league game really. If Tooney puts a chance away to go 2-0 up, obviously won there in the Conti Cup. The home game was pretty close as well. It's the one team in the top three that we actually do all right against. It's the Chelsea. Well, Chelsea obviously is the big one, but it's City who've had a couple of wins over, but obviously got beat heavy in the FA Cup as well against City. So Arsenal's the one team I always look at and think I wouldn't swap many of their players for ours. Whereas for the other teams, I see Meg laughing at me here.
Okay, let's go. No, hang on. Let's go through the starting 11 then for each sides and compare them. So, all right. So you got a choice between what's the Arsenal keeper's name? Evades me.
Zinsberger, Manuel.
Austrian. Yeah, Zinsberger or Earps.
Well, you're going for the Euros winner there, aren't you?
I'd have to take Earps as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Two fullbacks.
Are we assuming Maya Letitia is going to play right back for you?
Yes, I'd say so. I'd have Maya and Honor at fullback. I wouldn't have anyone else.
Okay, yeah. So okay. So Honor or Catley, I think that's a debate, to be honest, because I think Steph Catley's a really, really good player. I would have Leah Williamson over any of your centre backs twice over.
Williamson goes in.
Yeah.
I would have Woburn Moy over any of your centre backs twice over.
Potentially.
Left back. Who's Arsenal play at left back these days? It's occasionally McCabe. I know that.
Or Maritz.
Yeah.
No, Maritz.
As much as I hate Katie McCabe, I would have her over Maya purely because she'll kick people and that will intimidate people. I would have Kim Little over any of your midfielders.
No, you're. I've said there's some London bias here. Emma, help me out.
No, I would have. I'd have Kim. Kim Little would walk into any WSL, I'd have her happily at Chelsea. She'd walk into any WSL side. Who else have you got in your midfield these days, Meg?
What, Arsenal or Man U?
Matt, how Arsenal nowadays?
Leah Valti, she's sort of, that defence.
Yeah, okay. I have Valti over any of your defence midfielders because Valti's brilliant.
It's being brutal here.
I know. I'm just being honest. I would, in all honesty, I don't really.
I can make a case for her, but I think one of the United midfield, Tooney goes in straight away anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Beth Mead, I have. Funnily enough, Arsenal wouldn't. I'd have Beth Mead over Nikita Paris. I'd have Miedemar and Blackstenius. Blackstenius and Russo is a tough one because I do think Blackstenius is a good finisher, but I'd have Russo probably over her.
Yeah.
And then who's your final member of your attack these days, Connor?
It'd be Galton or I'm trying to think of else we got on the left now.
Well, regardless, I'm having Miedemar over them. So yeah, I think that makes it about 7-4 in Arsenal favour.
I wouldn't be swapping any of that front line for any of Arsenal's, put it that way. Go on, Meg, have you got a counter to that?
No, I just think I think towards the end of last season we started to play Miedemar in that sort of number 10 role. She was playing a bit more deeper and spraying those passes out to the left and the right. You can't take anyone over Miedemar. I'm sorry. You can't.
Miedemar's thing is the interesting thing is that midway through the season, and I don't know if this was her deciding it or if it was the manager deciding it, that they stopped finally playing up front and getting her chasing loads of unnecessary loose balls that were just being punted forward and going nowhere near her. And they actually put her in the position where she was playing those passes to players that would run onto them. And unsurprisingly, that worked a lot better. I did a thread on this last year and I said, are people criticising Miedemar at Christmas and saying she's having a poor season? She wasn't. It was just, similar to Pernilla Harder at Chelsea. She was having a very good season. It's just she was being underused and being used incorrectly.
I think.
Anyway, I've said enough nice things about Arsenal for tonight. So
I think sometimes if strikers haven't got goals to their names, and people just assume that they're not producing, and I think a big misconception in the women's game, as well, in football in general, I suppose, as well.
I 100% agree in the women's game. Like, I've heard there have been some truly baffling responses I've heard to people when they've looked at goal tallies to people like Beth England, or I've even had one with Russo the other day where I had someone debating Leslie Russo, and they were saying to me Russo wasn't a top striker because of her goal tally. And at that point, I just stopped debating with them because I thought, you know what, I've got no time to sit and listen to the conversation. I think it's also people don't realise that in the men's game, you're perhaps more likely to see strikers because there's more games breaking the sort of 30, 40 goal barrier mark. In the women's game, okay, you get one or two anomalies who do it. Like, you know, Miedemar in all competitions will break sort of 20 quite easily. Kerr will do it and might reach 30. But you don't see it for, you know, you just don't see it in other sort of situations. And you don't see it with a lot of players, whereas in the men's game, I think it's slightly more common.
No, 100%. I don't think I agree with that comment now. I continue playing Miedemar as a 10. I don't agree with that. I think she's done excellent there, to be honest. And she was in, I think if you look back at the show we did at the end of last season, she was in my team of the season. So, you know, people in the comments saying you wouldn't take Miedemar, I would. I just wouldn't put her out wide, as Rob was debating with the kind of the goal.
Well, no, I was just saying in terms of, like, if you look at like pound for pound, like, obviously you don't play the same formation, so.
Yeah, no.
But regardless, I'd probably put Miedemar out wide over any of your wingers still, because she'll still, you know, pop in and score from the wing.
Yeah. There we go, Pete. I've got some back. I don't want to swap any flavour any Arsenal, but I would swap Kerr for Miedemar.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to
weaken. I mean, that's something inevitably I could sit and have a very long argument about this on both sides. I will say Kerr's, like, one thing I do think that really does separate her and Miedemar, and the thing that does really amaze me about Sam Kerr, how good she is in big games. Like, if there's one player, this was also one of the main reasons why, when last year at half-time, one of the few crumbs of comfort that I did have on that final day when we were losing 2-1 is that, we've got Sam Kerr up front. It's a big game. She's inevitably going to do something. Admittedly, I didn't think something was going to be scoring 2 volleys, you know, 2 worldies that are going to stick in my memory for a long, long time. But I did think something would happen. And I did think at times Miedemar it's not just doesn't turn up in big games, but she spends so much time doing other stuff in big games that she's just not in there to finish chances. And at times I almost think that's kind of her kryptonite in big games.
Don't remind me of that game. That game will forever haunt me. Connor, why couldn't Man U have done something?
Yeah, I don't. I think Sam Kerr's a little bit overrated, to be honest, but we'll move on. Sorry, I'll just drop that in there and I'll move on. I'm joking, by the way.
This is why she saves her worldies. This is why her and Harder save the worldies for against you.
Yeah, I am joking before everyone starts clipping that up and sticking that on the what is it, the bad takes or whatever that faceless page is or whatever. But anyway, Emma, I want to come to you anyway in terms of how are you viewing Arsenal this season? It's a pretty quiet window, but are you seeing them as kind of a good threat again, pushing on for the title?
Yeah, I'm going to put Arsenal under the same umbrella as Chelsea and United in this respect, because I actually feel that coming off of the back of the Euros, and especially those, English players that have had amazing summers, I do think it's going to bolster some of the teams a little bit. Like, I know, like, everyone's going to be looking to United now that maybe have only just really been introduced to the women's game off of the back of obviously the summer, and thinking, wow, I want to go and watch, United and see what Tooney and Russo can do. And I think that's great, but I also kind of think that, again, that, there might be some new fans going to games and then wondering why Tooney and Russo aren't always up amongst the goals, you know what I mean? So I think it's going to be interesting in that respect. Arsenal, when they hit the ground running, they can be a really difficult side to break down. And I think the difference with Arsenal is that they managed to keep, obviously, much like Chelsea, a lot of their core players, which is obviously something we do. So, I think it's Arsenal are always one to watch, and I think, slowly seem to be really improving as well and finding their sort of form as well. So, like you said, I think Arsenal will definitely be up there, pushing everyone, as will Chelsea. But for me, I think it's Chelsea that'll probably have that extra little edge over everyone else, like they always seem to. I just hope that whichever team it is, if it's us, if it's Arsenal or whatever, it makes for an exciting season and one that keeps, everyone entertained in terms of like those new football fans that are probably coming in and watching the women's game, watching the Women's Super League for the first time.
No, 100%. And obviously, like you said there, some of the Euros players that was coming back with Williamson as well. What I think we said on our show is about 2-3 weeks ago now, the girls that have won the Euros that are going back to their sides, they're going to come back like new signings anyway, because they'll have grown so much since winning the Euros. They're almost like new players in themselves. I've still not decided. I've got about... Go on.
Sorry. The biggest one for me is that Keats move. That's the one that's intrigued me so much. Like, I'm dying to know how she's going to sort of bed in there and what she's going to bring to that United side, and is she going to produce? I can't wait to see what she can bring. I'll be watching her very closely. Put it that way.
Well, you might have to when she's scoring past you. But there we are. I've got about 20 minutes to decide who I'm going to, when we get to the predictions in a minute, who I'm going to drop out of the top three. I've still not decided whether it's City or Arsenal, because it's going to be one of you. I was thinking this all week, who am I going to drop out in my predictions, but I'll get back to that.
You better have a really good, valid reason for whoever you don't choose.
Yeah, I can make a case for both, to be honest. But sticking with it, Meg, you can round off the kind of Arsenal discussion, then we'll look at Chelsea. Same question that I rounded off with Emma with City. What would be a successful season for Arsenal, do you think?
I think, to put it how it is, I think a success, we didn't get any trophies last season, so a success this season will be a trophy, whether it is the WSL title, the FA Cup, the Conti Cup. I maybe wouldn't be overly joyed with the Conti Cup, but I think the FA Cup, especially the final against Chelsea in December, the one that was delayed and played late, after going to that game and watching that and, being so utterly heartbroken at how we played against them that day, I just hope that we can maybe do something like that this season, whether it's against Chelsea or another side.
And that's an interesting one. Look and see what McCabe's yellow card count will be. Reckon double figures. I wouldn't be a bad...
I do love a bit of McCabe, though, when she gets everyone wound up. It's great.
Yes, indeed. It's Charlie's best mate now. She's just put that comment in. Best mates with McCabe now. We'll move on to Chelsea then, because I want to keep this brief, because let's be real, their squad's just taking the mick out of the rest of the league. Really, when you look at every time Chelsea was signing the player, I was like, really? Like, do you really? And I was looking at Chelsea's squad before we came on here, and I was like, how? That's my first question to you, Rob. The signings that you've made, how do you make a team out of that? Because so many forwards, how are you going to fit all of that into it? Obviously, Emma Hayes will find a way. I'm sure she will. She's a fantastic manager. But where do you kind of feel you must be confident going into this season, surely?
Well, in pre-season, we had Lauren James playing centre mid and we had Canary playing at right wing back. So I think you will see an awful lot of rotation from Chelsea this season. I've been told by people, around the club that the plan is basically to have 2 11s, to have one that can handle most WSL games and to have one that is sort of for the Champions League games and brought out for the big WSL matches and brought out for the ones where they need that extra bit of firepower. Firstly, I mean, keeping everyone, in sort of at the club, I think is a big thing. Obviously, we lost Jon Anderson left, Drew Spence left, and Gito Yunel left, and they were all, top players. But at the same time, I do think that Chelsea have replaced them really well. And I do also think that they have brought in some really, really interesting players, in Kanarid Kankovic and Svitkova, who effectively are the de facto replacements, I suppose, for those three. I think the one that really, really stands out to me, or the two that do, is Perisset, because it's the first time in a long, long time I remember signing a specialist right back who actually, Niamh Charles was meant to be, but she's played every position other than right back so far for us. But Perisset looks like someone who could really, really add, an extra dimension to the attack. She can take penalties. She takes free kicks. She's really, really offensive, and that looks like a great thing. And then, obviously, Khadijah Buchanan. Can't sort of forget about her. She's just, adding Buchanan, I think, to the back three of Eriksson and Bright is, it's just something quite otherworldly. to be honest, I think even with Berger, obviously, and I should also say at the same time, I wish the best to Ann-Katrin Berger during obviously her recent sort of illness, and all Chelsea fans, I'm sure all WSL fans are behind her as she battles it once again. But I think Musovic is a good goalkeeper, but I think her being a good goalkeeper is amplified by the fact she gets so few chances against her because of you're looking at Bright and Buchanan and Eriksson, who all sort of contribute and work with each other very, very well. And yeah, someone says between Bright and Eriksson, it depends if we play the three at the back. I think this is the other big thing is Chelsea has such tactical flexibility this year with the signings they've made. They can play a 3, they can play a 4, they can drop in. You can play with 2 defensive midfielders. You can play with a 4-2-4 if you really wanted to. I'm sure at some point I'll see Emma Hayes do something really crazy like play a 4-1-5. Because inevitably it will just happen to some poor side that will, come to Kingsmeadow one day and get walloped like Leicester did last year. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to not be happy. Obviously, I do think that, we could still improve. I do think Euro will be a, definite improvement on the squad as we do look to go, I think, to try and win everything. And I think Chelsea fans would be disappointed this year if we're not going far in the Champions League and winning the WSL and at least one of the domestic trophies. I think Chelsea fans will be disappointed, but it does really feel like last year the reason the Champions League sort of didn't work out was because the squad depth wasn't really there, and there was a very good first 11, and there's a little bit of rotation. This year it does feel like there's that extra rotation that's needed. So if you need to rest players, you can rest players, and I think it's also the players that who aren't necessarily de facto starters who you've got there. People like Beth England who comes in who would start for most other WSL sides, and indeed I would wager that if you would put her against up any side possibly other than Arsenal, and you'd have a debate as to whether she was the starting striker. You've got people like Guro Wrighton who she's not a de facto starter in the front three, but I know for a fact, Connor, you would take her at United. You'd sell your soul to have her at United. And there's also people like Chelsea have options in the midfield. Like for example, if they don't want to play Svitkova or Kankovic, they've got Jessie Fleming who can come in. You've got Erin Cuthbert who can come in, who's just reaching new levels of performance in the last 6 months. Yeah, it's a great time to be a Chelsea fan on that side, and it's nice to actually know who the manager is. That's that's the real reassurance actually at this moment in time. Actually having a Chelsea side where I know who's in charge and who is the manager.
No, 100%. There's a couple of comments I'm going to come back to in a second, Rob, but I want to get Emma and then Meg you following on this one in terms of your thoughts on Chelsea, because Emma, particularly from maybe from a City point of view, are you worried that Chelsea might just run away with this a little bit? You're on mute, by the way. I'm sure what you're saying, Emma, is fantastic, but we can't hear you at the moment. You're on mute.
I said, I hope not. Because I kind of feel Chelsea have obviously just domestically, they seem to be like the Lyon of the English domestic league. You know what I mean? Where Lyon just continued to dominate, and they were so far ahead of everybody else that no one could eventually touch them, and obviously that has changed now. But yeah, I almost feel, I don't care who it is, but I hope that someone can just kind of find that extra edge over Chelsea. At this point I don't care who it is. If it's City, great. If it's Arsenal, so be it. If it's United, there might be a small little bit of me inside that might even get behind it. But Chelsea are an incredible side. There's no doubt about it. And they're led by an incredible manager, backed by an incredible team behind the scenes as well. If anybody had obviously watched that documentary, which was incredibly insightful, as to, I think somebody put in the comments, how does Emma Hayes get the best out of that Chelsea side? How does she keep everyone happy? Go and watch that documentary because it's incredible. She's the kind of person that is just able to just get the best out of everyone. And it's unified, and they play for each other. And I think that they don't play as individuals, they play as a team. And that's how you get the best out of your players. Again, you could say the similar sort of thing to Serena and how she's obviously got the best out of the Lionesses this summer. So Yeah, I think Chelsea are a brilliant team. They're a great setup. They're deserving of all the success that they get, but I hope it does come to an end soon.
Fingers crossed. I'm getting a bit sick of it.
Sorry, Rob.
I totally agree. I think something will have to go dreadfully wrong for them not to dominate the league as they have done for however many seasons now. It would have to take like a Sam Kerr injury or something crazy like that for other teams to try and chase them. But I think even before the transfer window this summer, their squad depth is and still is absolutely ridiculous. And as Rob said, they can literally field 2 starting 11s that could pretty much dominate any team in the WSL, and that is a scary prospect. And I've always been scared of Chelsea, for the past few years since they've sort of taken over from us as the big dogs in the WSL. But I just hope that something can happen and that another team, whether it is us or someone else, can challenge for a title or try and beat them in a final of one of the domestic cups.
I'd 100% agree. I want it to end as well, purely because as a newer fan like myself, obviously going first time last season, I came in and everyone was, oh yeah, Chelsea are kind of the team to beat. Went to that game at LSV. It's like, right, okay, I think we can win it. I was going in, I was like, I think we can beat these. Absolutely got turned over. And, that lowered my expectations, I think, for the rest of the season. Slater, I don't appreciate it. It's just abuse on on here. I'm assuming that's when I have my camera off, which it's not very nice of you, is it? But it's all love anyway. There was a question a bit further on. I wanted to come to you, Rob. I think Emma mentioned one of them, but there was 2 questions. Kind of ties into the same thing. Is there enough games for Chelsea to give all their games playing time? And also kind of the question that Emma was referencing there, how does Emma Hayes keep everyone happy with the players that are at club?
In terms of the Emma Hayes thing, like I've been... A lot of the players after the game, you sort of talk to them and you can just see the level of admiration they sort of have for them. I know for a fact that with Kankovic and Canarid, it took one phone call with Emma Hayes this summer to persuade them to change from going to North London to coming to West London, which shows the power and the influence that she does have. I think it's at a point now, and I sort of said it's a bit like with Alex Ferguson in the men's game, the fact that even when players come in that maybe perhaps are known for having egos or perhaps known for being a bit difficult, they don't dare to try and take on the manager because they know they won't get any support from the dressing room. The dressing room is so well united behind it. And I think you saw that a little bit in the documentary with what happened with Ramona Bachmann, who obviously is a tremendous player. It's interesting about Wright as a wing-back because she has improved immensely, but I don't really think Chelsea play with wing-backs anymore. I think they play with just midfielders. I think they won't ask the defence issue of it. They'll just look to try and outscore people. And you started to see that towards the end of last season, especially when the handbrake started to go off. The only real question mark, I think, for me as a Chelsea fan, from a squad perspective, and this someone went to the game point, is that I think there are enough games. I think there are plenty of games in all competitions. But I do think it will be interesting to see in games, if, for example, Chelsea concede early, how their opponents respond, how they respond, if they change system, if they bring players on. Because in the past, we've had people like Ji So-Yun who can come off the bench and can, just create something out of nothing. I mean, she effectively changed the game, even in that final game against Manchester United. She came on and suddenly we took control of the midfield that was very lacking. There are new players that have come in, and again, people tell me Kankovic is a tremendous player and is the sort of player that can fill in that mould. I'm really excited about Canarid because she's so direct and so fast, and it finally Chelsea women appear to have replaced Iron Robin before Chelsea men have replaced Iron Robin. But ultimately at this moment in time, they are not Ji So-Yun, they are not Jon Anderson, they are not Drew Spence. I still need to see them, and they need to prove it, I think, to the fans and to the players. Maybe a bit less or so with Perisset and Buchanan because they've got so much experience in the UWCL, and I don't think, let's face it, I don't think any defender is going to come from Lyon and not have, be a very good player, or going to be a player who's played at Paris Saint-Germain and not be a very good player. But I think it's just that little bit of extra kick-up of seeing that these players can come in and really do it and do it when it matters.
No, 100%. Just final question for yourself, Rob, on a Chelsea point of view. It kind of, you say as much as you want here. Anyone leaving? Anyone coming in, do you reckon, before deadline day tomorrow?
Giora and Evra are the two players Chelsea are looking at. I think Giora is more likely, but again, it's still very difficult. Evra, I think they'll probably wait until January and see what happens. It does partly depend on, what happens at AKB as well. Charlotte Wardlaw will possibly go on loan if Giora comes in. Ingle is keen to discuss the opportunity with City, but I think Chelsea will block the transfer until Giora comes in, and even then Emma Hayes would like to keep them both. There's a couple of other youngsters that might go out on loan who are in the development side who might sign pro contracts and go on loan. I believe is the loan window open for an extra week or something, or is it open for another month, or might be dual registration, or one of the options they can do with it. But one of the big things from Chelsea this summer was to try and keep some of the fringe first team players, people like Beth England, in the club, and they've obviously managed that. And it'll be really interesting to see how they manage that sort of going forward.
No, 100%. I am amazed at how well you've kept some of your key players, as you said, and brought ones in. I was constantly in your DMs going, how? Like, why do you need another one? It's just, I think they're taking the mick, really. But hopefully someone can, like Arsenal maybe, obviously they did it last season, but just somebody take it to the final day again, because we'd love to see that. I'd hate to see, after the good Euros we've had, obviously being competitive, I'd hate for one team to then walk the WSL next season. I don't think anyone really wants to see that. Maybe Rob does, but I don't think anyone really wants to see
I'll admit, I'd rather it be competitive, because I think it's better for the league for it to be competitive. I don't think, especially with the amount of nonsense and flack, like keyboard warriors say about women's football not being competitive, it won't be helpful if suddenly we get to Christmas and say Chelsea are 12 points ahead, 15 points ahead, and it is a case, it's a matter of when rather than if, because that won't help anyone. The only people that will help is Chelsea, because it means they can then put all the eggs in the Champions League basket.
Champions League or bust, maybe. I don't know. That was our title.
I've said it before, and I've said it on other places. I would happily take not winning the WSL, not winning the FA Cup, not winning the Conti Cup if we maybe won the Champions League, because ultimately the Champions League is what matters now to Chelsea. And it's a point where even if you lose the WSL, you can still then say you were the champions of Europe, whether the other team is in the WSL, won't be champions of Europe, and therefore you're better than them. And ultimately that is the pinnacle to be at. I think it's also, from a perspective, it's the one Chelsea fans really want to get, because then it means Arsenal fans will finally shut up about it. It's the only thing they can still lord over us. And, they're blissfully aware that once we get that done, it's the same with the men on the men's side. If there's one thing I will tell every Arsenal fan, it's I'll remind them they haven't won the European Cup and we've done it twice. But it's, it is the thing that I think, and it's the thing I also think Emma Hayes, if Chelsea do win it, I think Emma Hayes will leave. And I've said this before, because I think she won't see there's anything else to be done. I think she'll see the cycle as complete.
Thank God. I appreciate her as a good manager, but I'd like to see United up there challenging and doing things. I don't think potentially until Emma Hayes leaves Chelsea. I
think the only natural progression now is that we can see is that obviously the WSL remains competitive, which I think last season it was. The top 4, top 5, top 6, let's say, it was competitive. United were pushing. They broke that into that top 3. They made it more exciting. And I can only see, United building from that. And I think, obviously, with the signings that they've made, I think they're statement signings in terms of the club's intent. They want to build and they want to move on. The foundations are pretty much there. It's just about tweaking. We've spoke about that before at length. So it's exciting.
I will say, I also do think we've been a bit harsh on not talking much about Tottenham here, because I think they've got a top manager. They're very hard to score against, and again, the 9 that they've brought in, as I said, she will cause problems to defences, even if she isn't scoring herself. Again, I don't know if any of you have Googled her name. It begins with an N, but she's absolutely massive. She was making, people like Magda Eriksson look tiny in the sort of pre-season game, and they've brought in that nous and that experience in Drew Spence, and Drew Spence has been there and done that, on every single stage of the WSL. I feel that's why, genuinely, I think Tottenham could be one of the outside bets, and I think they could end up sneaking into third, because I do think, that people aren't giving them enough credit. They've got some very good young players there. They've brought in as well Bizet, who's a very, very good transfer. And if they continue to be tough to beat, Rahan Skinner tactically, I think, is better than Mark Skinner in terms of setting up a team defensively and how to beat them. I think she's better than Gareth Taylor. So I do think genuinely that they could be there or thereabouts. I think it's unfair, especially towards the end of last season. They only tailed off right at the end of last season, and that was because they didn't have a goal scorer. They've now got this person in from FC Fleury who is a goal scorer. And, even if it's a case that they win games 1-0, it may not be pretty football, but sometimes that's what you need for that first footing to get into the Champions League and then to kick on.
If you think about last season and, everyone was talking about Everton, look at the signings Everton's made. I mean, and look how that played out in the end. Tottenham were the team getting the results and breaking obviously into that top three and top of the league. So, yeah, I definitely think, you're right there, Rob. I think they're definitely not a team to be overlooked in that respect.
No, I agree a little bit. Can we just spam in the chat?
A little bit.
Just meg off. Can we go with that? But I don't know. Well, we'll get to predictions in a second, but I can't see it.
We can stop talking about Spurs now.
We'll move on to United because that'll be better for you, won't it? We won't spend too long on this because we've done a lot of shows on this channel about United. But I just want to get each of your thoughts from an outside point of view on United's chances and the window that we've had, because we've been very active, very busy, kind of incomings and outgoings, a couple of loans going out. A couple of players left. Obviously, the loan deal's coming to an end. Brought 7 players in as well from a lot of attackers, stacking out the forward line. Obviously, one of the best signs of the window for me and my Laetitia as well coming in. So I'll come to each of you in terms of how you think from United's chances, and be as honest as you want. I'm not going to hold it against you, but we'll go in reverse order this time. Meg, I'll come to you first. How are you kind of seeing United's chances and the window they've had after the signings that we've made as a club?
Yeah, I think you've made some, as you say, Maya Laetitia might be, the best signing you've made. She's going to have a real impact. I think Nikita Paris might surprise a few people. I think she wasn't getting the game time that she does deserve to get at Arsenal. And I think if Man U do give her that chance, I don't know how many of you watched the Lionesses game last night, but for me, she was one of the most outstanding players on the pitch, and obviously she scored against Austria to secure World Cup qualification. And I think that there's going to help her take that form into the WSL season, and hopefully if Man U give her that opportunity to perform, then she'll be a real key player. But I also think, the likes of Mary Earps, Russo, Toon, because they all had such an incredible Euros, I think they're just going to keep carrying that momentum into the season, and own a battle as well. I think you've got a really, really strong starting 11. Maybe not in terms of squad depth compared to Chelsea, but you've got a really strong starting 11. And I'd say third. I don't think you're going to push above us, but I don't know.
I like that. That's a good start. I'll convince you by the end of the show that we're winning the thing. Rob, for yourself, obviously we've spoken a lot throughout this transfer window, as I said there. So Adriana Leon, Rachel Williams, Clinton, Laetitia, Garcia, Paris and Tunkara. Like I said, 4 attackers there, 1 midfielder, 2 defenders. We really failed to get to, obviously City had a good resurgence towards the end of the season, but we failed to get top 3 last season purely because we couldn't score. We were drawing far too many games. We actually lost less than City last season. We just couldn't get the draws into wins. So do you think United have done enough signings wise to make the jump, do you think?
Honestly, it's a fascinating question. I think Tunkara and Laetitia are great signings at the back. I do think that adds extra solidity into there. I think Tunkara might surprise people a lot. I think she's a very, very good player. Maya, I think, might take a little bit of time to find her feet in the system, but I think when she does, she'll start flying. I do say I feel a bit sorry for Hannah Blundell because, again, I think similar to at Chelsea, she's done really well and then just been pushed out the system for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So she must be getting sick of it, really. From an attacking point of view, I don't really understand the signing of Rachel Williams. That seems a bit bizarre. Leon's agent must be the greatest agent in the world because somehow she had offers on the table from Real Madrid, Barcelona and Manchester United. I think she's okay, but I don't think she's brilliant. Garcia is a very good player. Paris is the one that's the real unknown quantity to me. Obviously, we know this year she's looking to try and get a dream move to Liverpool next season, so she'll want to score plenty of goals. I think she will definitely have a bit of a chip on her shoulder to try and impress people, and also to try and secure that World Cup spot for next season. I think the big things from a United point of view is keeping a hold of honour, because I think if you'd have lost honour, you'd have been back to square one from a defensive point of view. Keeping hold of Jackie Gronin so far is big, as long as you actually use her properly. And I'm just really interested to find out where Vilda-Berrisa goes tomorrow, because inevitably she's going to be one of the last minute. My prediction is last minute loan to Everton is what I can just see happening. But clearly she wants to go. You're not going to play her, so I mean, City need a midfielder. Maybe you can loan her to City for the season.
No chat. I actually really rate Vilda-Berrisa, so I'm surprised that she's not had.
Oh, I know. That's exactly why I did it, just to annoy you.
But I don't know. I think she's an interesting one. You mentioned there the midfield. We don't tend to rotate the midfield anyway. It's the one area of the pitch that is kind of pretty settled. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, Berrisa. I really don't know. We said this on Monday. I don't know where she fits in next season, because as Zellum always plays, Ladd and Jackie are ahead of her. She's not getting in ahead of Tooney. So where does she play? So
last minute loan to Everton, or like a loan to a French club, because their window's still, I think, on for the next 2 weeks.
I hope not. I hope we try and keep hold of her, but we shall see. Emma, we'll go on. And what's your thought? You mentioned Paris earlier. What's your kind of thoughts on United's window? And are you a little bit worried? Obviously, like I said, you went on a resurgence at the back end of last season. It was kind of our draws that obviously led you to overtake in the end, but you still had to win the games. You were a little bit worried after the window maybe that we've had compared to yours?
No. No. No, I think Keats is, as Megan said, she's hungry, she's relentless, and I think that'll go down quite well with United fans, to be honest. I think we've not spoken about Mannion either. She's back on the pitch, isn't she? Looking like she could well be returning back to games soon. So if she hasn't played already in pre-season, I'm not sure, but
she'll be back.
Yeah, so that's almost like getting a new player back as well. So I think it's like Rob said, I think it's the big games really to see improvements in terms of United getting the results, because they're the games that are making the difference in terms of the table standings for United. I don't see that, again, they can't get the results against the likes of, say, Brighton, Reading, Liverpool, things like that. It's the big games. It's the big games where you've got to get the results and find a way to win. And hopefully, Mark has obviously brought in the right players to kind of give United that edge and get some consistency in terms of performances. Obviously, last season was a bit of trial and error, I thought, when he came in and tried to swap and change a few things in formations and the way that they played. I think he is the right man for the job. And I can see, if United fans back him and give him the chance and opportunity to do that, I do feel that he will eventually find a way of getting the best out of the team, out of the players, and getting those sort of results that in return, obviously, enable United to build. And I think a good cup run this season for United would be something I'd be looking possibly United to do well in, the likes of the Conti Cup, maybe, a good run in the FA Cup. I think would be progression and a bit of a marker as to how far United can go in terms of pushing everybody else in terms of the league as well.
I do have an interesting question from a United point of view. So hypothetically, you don't make the top three this season. Do you fear a City-esque exodus next year with people like Russo, Toon maybe not, because I think she signed a new deal, but obviously Gronin, Ajay, even Mary Earps potentially, all looking to get Champions League football, and obviously some of those players aren't getting any younger.
Jackie, 100%, she'll be off next summer if she doesn't go tomorrow. But yeah, she'll be off next summer if we don't get Champions League. Honor, again, that I'd expect her to go. She's too good to be not in the Champions League, so I'd expect her to go. Russo, I don't. It's difficult with Russo because obviously Toon is still there. She signed a longer term contract. Russo's still quite young. She doesn't need to leave yet. She can still hang out for a couple of years without Champions League and then get the move when she's kind of 24, 25 if she really wants to. So she's still got a bit more time. So I think there'll definitely be some. There's players leave all the time. We've had a couple leave this summer. It happens. But yeah, I think there'll be a few of the bigger names go next summer should we not get it, which is why obviously on the the Monday show we did it, we kind of titled it as Champions League or Bust, because I think this season more than ever is our chance to get in. When you look at City, the window they've had, you look at the signs we've made. Obviously, we've clearly clearly backed Mark Skin, and now it's time to, go and perform. So I'm not too sure. I think yes, we'll see a couple, but I think some of those players would have gone regardless. I think so. It's an interesting one. Right, we'll move it on to our predictions, and this is where I've decided who I'm dropping out the top three, and I have got I've got my reason. So I'll come to each of you then. Top three. We'll just do that first. I've got a couple more, but we'll just do that one first. So top three. You can throw a relegation team in there as well if you want, but mainly your top three in the order that you think is going to finish. I'll let anyone go first on that one. You can all fight over who wants it.
I'll go. My top three is Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United.
I like that. That's one already.
That's what Connor's gone with, hasn't it? You may as well chuck yours in.
Connor's got United winning the league somehow, which is just immediately means we just disregard that one. I've got Chelsea, and then Arsenal, and then a Manchester side. I don't know which one is going to be. I have a feeling. I do have a bit of a feeling that it will be United this year. Then again, I could just very easily see United doing what they did a couple of years ago, which is starting really, really well and then just fading completely into obscurity and sort of ending up battling sort of for fourth place with Tottenham. So yeah, I'll plump for City purely just because I think they've got the nous of the experience and the Lauren Hemp factor. Like, I just feel at some point, inevitably a few times this season, Lauren Hemp will just win games on her own when City don't play very well, but Lauren Hemp does a couple of brilliant things and wins the game for them.
Potentially. In answer to your question, that's my top three right there. In that order. Chelsea, United, Arsenal. I think if things click for United this season, the amount of attacking options we've got and the rotation that you can potentially have, I think we can I don't think we'll push Chelsea for the league. Like I said, I think Chelsea will probably win it with a game or two to spare, but I think we will finish ahead of Arsenal and ahead of City. But I will phrase that as I think it's going to be within a few points between second and fourth. I think, as you said earlier, Spurs will be there for a bit, probably 5 to 9 points back. But I think that Arsenal, City, United, I think will be separated by a couple of points, and I think we'll just get over it. Like I said, we don't struggle against Arsenal, so I think we can beat them in both games, and City as well. We just need to look at the way I always look at it against top three: win your home games, don't lose your away, and I think we should sneak in maybe into second. Go on, Emma. Do you? I'm assuming you disagree with that. You're going to put City in the top three. You're on mute again, by the way. I don't think Emma's realised. You are on mute.
You're still on mute.
Damn it! This is why I don't turn my mic off. Anyway, so I've got like how I want it to play out and how I think it's going to play out. So I'm going to go with how I want it to play out, and I actually think Arsenal are going to win the league. Me having more faith in your team than you having faith in your team. Chelsea second, City third. But yeah, I think it's going to be really difficult for City this season, to be honest. I do believe in the players that we've brought in, without a doubt. I'm excited to see them play. But I also worry about, obviously, the impact of the players that we've lost, because they are a core set of players, and how we're going to adapt, obviously not having them within the squad anymore, and which players are going to step in and fill those roles. So I'm a bit apprehensive about it. So I feel that it's going to be a bit of a slow burn for City for the start of the season again, but we'll catch up and make top three.
Interesting. I think a lot of people are underestimating this. A United channel, and there's people in the comments underestimating United. What's going on here? Sadly, I can see Chelsea finishing way clear of everyone else.
They're not underestimating; they're just being realists, Connor.
Realist. Where does that ever get anyone optimistic?
Someone said Chelsea third or fourth. I think that's a bit.
I saw someone that said Chelsea fourth, and yeah,
that one. Yeah.
that one.
I mean, maybe in the Premier League they might be right. Yeah, I think. Sadly, I think the only place Chelsea are finishing fourth in that case is maybe on a popular football simulation game.
Potentially, I have said if United can't win the league in real life in the WSL, I'll just win it on FIFA with the women's team being added into there anyway. So I'll get a win.
Unfortunately, you won't be able to do that either because it isn't featured. Career mode is not part of the game. So
well, that's just rumour dreams. But there we are. Shall we go for a relegation team? I don't even know who would go down. I've not even thought about it, to be honest. It's just when I was looking at the league table at who could go down. Leicester, maybe.
I really fear for Leicester and West Ham.
I would say, I think I'd say Leicester.
I really don't want it to be Leicester because I really like Leicester, and also they give us an annual, they always lovely and allow us to score a lot of goals against them to boost the goal difference, which is always very nice. But I will say West Ham are the one that I do think is interesting because they've lost so many big players. This summer, Svitkova, that was such a big player for them. Not Petzelberger, one of the other West Ham players that's moved on. One of them has retired. Leon obviously has gone to United. They've lost a lot of key players, and that is always a concern. Whenever you lose a lot of key players and you're a side that is in mid-table, we all know it only takes a couple of players being out the side, and suddenly you go from mid-table in the WSL to fighting relegation.
Yeah.
No, interesting, yeah. And as much as I probably shouldn't say it as a United fan, I don't really want Liverpool to go down. I'd like them near the bottom, but I kind of want them to stay in the league now because I think it's good to have that rivalry in the league as well. So I probably wouldn't.
I actually think Liverpool will do well. To be fair, I think they're up for it. And to be fair, I think maybe obviously that season in the Championship has done them a bit of good, and I think that they've come back fighting. And I think that'll just translate in the performances in their application. And I'm excited to see what they're going to bring, actually. I think they're a good opposition for any team within the league. So, and I actually think they probably get a result against are they playing Reading first game of the season? So I could probably see them winning, to be fair.
Yeah, I could see that. Surprise package Villa, maybe. It's weird in the middle of the WSL, isn't it? 'Cause there's not that many points really from kind of your 6th to your 10th, so I don't think there's too much of a surprise. Rob obviously mentioned Spurs earlier going under the radar a little bit. I don't think there's any that's going to massively surprise. I think unless I think
Liverpool are the closest one. I think Liverpool are the closest one to that. I think they could give some bloody noses out to teams because they developed a good squad. They've also got a young squad, and they've got some real. They've got Van der Sande in there, who again has that in a not quite as regular pattern as the Lauren Hemp pattern. Her ability will just win some games by herself, and that'll be the sort of thing against, when they come against other mid-table sides, that could be the deciding sort of factor.
I love that she's gone back to Liverpool, and I love that she's back in WSL. Because I used to really enjoy watching her, and obviously I feel since she went Lyon, just not really seen that much of her. So I think that was a great acquisition by Liverpool, that one.
No, 100%. We'll move it on then to Golden Boot. Now, I think this one is probably going to be... it's going to be a Chelsea player, isn't it? I don't think... For me, I don't think you can look past Sam Kerr. I think, again, just, how many was it last season? Was it 20 goals in the WSL?
29, 32 if you technically include the 3 from the previous year's FA Cup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should know. We were working this out yesterday, Rob. So
you should use
whatever.
Yeah, I think it was 20 in the league. So yeah, I'm going to go Sam Kerr. Is there anyone that disagrees with that one?
There is an ancient Chinese proverb that Sam may curb, but Sam will score, and it has just been proven to be very, very true.
I'd love to say Beth Mead, but yeah, Sam Kerr.
Megan! What's wrong with you? I've just said that they're going to win the league. Beth Mead is going to be Golden Boot winner.
Okay, Beth Mead is going to be the Golden Boot winner.
There you go. Someone clip that. But no, I tend to agree. I think Mead might get close. To be fair, if Arsenal have a good run, I think she finished 3rd, didn't she, last year? Yeah. Behind Mead.
I think the thing for Mead. the thing for Mead when she's at Arsenal is she's such more of a creative sort of force. And it's a bit similar to sort of Kirby. Like, I think if you start Kirby with her finishing ability, I think if you stuck her up front, she would get 15 plus goals if she played regularly up front. She's a very good finisher. But Mead is such a more creative force. I think she's more like the sort of player that's going to get, 10 plus goals and say 15 plus assists in all competitions and be that sort of more all-round player rather than just that sort of pure goal scorer. It's interesting people don't mention Blackstenius. I think if Arsenal have a good season, I think Blackstenius will score a lot because I don't think she will do a lot outside the box, but I think she's very, very good inside the box.
No, it's a fair shout. And there's a shout for Russo finally. I probably should have done that myself, but potentially. I think Russo will get into double figures this year, but I don't think she'll push for the Golden Boot. I think she got 9 in the league last year. So if she can get into kind of 14, 15 maybe, I think that'll be success for her. And the last one then is just if there's any surprise player, any player you think's not getting mentioned enough at the moment, or that fans think is not a good player, but you think they're going to really perform well this season. Anyone like that you think is going to surprise a lot of people this season?
Can I think about that for a minute?
I don't know necessarily if it's a surprise, but I think Lauren James will have a big season at Chelsea this year. I think she needs it because obviously she's coming into a Chelsea side that is sacked with talent, but she's played really well in pre-season. She looks a lot fitter and sharper than she did last year. She seems to have been adopted under her wing by Maren Mjelde and Fran Kirby, who are sort of two of the most consummate professionals in the squad. And I think she's one of those players, again, she's got so much ability. She's got pace. She can dribble with the ball. She can shoot from range. She can finish inside the box. Like, I do feel that, she could be a real surprise package and, really kick on. And then I think the other really random one that I'm really curious to see how she does do after another very good year, and she's still obviously very young, is Hannah Hampton. I think if Villa have even if Villa do struggle, I think Hampton will play very well in goal. And I think, it's probably, she's the next goalkeeper you're sort of looking at and saying is the next one of the big sides in the WSL, I think is going to pick up, especially after McIver has now gone to City to go sit on the bench for whatever reason for the year. Hampton now, I think her next move, especially with, Chelsea next year possibly losing both Musovic and the situation with Berger still sort of unclear. Obviously, Earps, I think, has 1 more year left on her deal at United, or it might be 2. So there's sort of got to be a longer-term succession plan. And you've also got other clubs around sort of Europe starting to look for goalkeepers. I think Hampton I think she could do really well internationally. Obviously, she originally came from sort of Spain and sort of developed up in the Spanish system. And I think she could do really, really well this year.
No, I'd agree with that. Someone's already stole mine. Yeah, Nikita Paris is going to be mine purely because of the season she had last year. There was a lot of the fan base was very split on her signing. A lot of people didn't like it. If you're like me, I think it was a good signing. I think she will do well, and I hope she does as well because I think it'll prove a lot of people wrong. And I think that she's going to surprise a lot of people. And there's a shout there, Zalem chasing World Cup. That's a shout as well because there's a couple of World Cup spots now opened up for next year. So Zalem's a good shout. Emma, Meg, have you got your kind of surprise player yet? Have you thought of somebody?
I wouldn't say she's a surprise, but I think Rachel Daly, coming to the WSL with Aston Villa, I think she'll prove to be a really key part of that squad. And obviously, she's a very consistent player. I wouldn't say she stood out at the Euros. I think maybe a couple of games you could argue the case that she was maybe player of the match, but I think she'll really be a good, addition to that back line and hopefully, push however high up the WSL table with Villa.
What position will she actually play at Villa? That's my big question for you. Will she play left back? Will it be right back? Will she be in goal?
You never know until they play, do you?
Yeah, exactly. That's the one thing with Daly. Again, I think you could realistically put Daly in any of the positions. I do think that's why, again, she's such a good signing for Villa. Is she could play literally anywhere and you get a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
100%. Emma, have you thought of a name that you can throw at us for your surprise?
So I think I'm looking forward to seeing Dana. How do you say it? Rob will tell me how to pronounce it. Yes, absolutely. I'm really excited to see her this season. Obviously, young. See how she can kind of contribute. 'Cause I think she's got a lot of potential. And I think she'll be a really key part of that squad. And I think she'll really be a good addition to that back line and hopefully, push however high up the WSL table with Villa. in terms of goals. I think it's just to see again how a lot of the players are going to bed in. I mean, players like Angeldal, that probably didn't get many minutes last season. How is she going to be utilised within the squad? Bunny, is she going to be that out and out striker? Is she going to be getting those minutes? Now obviously we've not got Ellen White. Who are we going to be looking at in terms of goals? I think we're going to see that spray of goals, but I think it would be nice to see if we've got sort of that out and out of striker that can produce in those one-on-one situations. So yeah, I'm excited to see the squad in terms of City. I think a big player for us next season will be Lasada, to be honest. If she can stay fit, I think she'll be really important to the team. So yeah, I'm looking forward. I am, despite everything that's happened, I am really looking forward to the weekend. Probably like you, it seems like it's took a long time for it to come round. It's been a long summer. I think we've all gone through the mill a little bit, but now obviously there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Now we can just focus on what we've got and try and get the best results we can.
No, 100%. It's all that kind of pre-season, like just before the start of the season, the optimism's high. United fans go, "Oh, we could push on." And if we push on, could we go for the title and all that? And every fan gets it, the kind of pre-season kind of emotion. Then if United go and lose to Spurs on Saturday, kind of midday, it's crashing back down to some kind of reality. So I hope that doesn't happen in front of a sold-out away end, I must add, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So that'll be quite good. We shall wrap it up there. Before we do go, I'll let you shout, obviously, because I know you're all very busy with all different kinds of things. So Meg, where can people find some of your work if they want to find that and follow you on social media and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, so recently and across the Euros, I've been doing a lot of stuff for Dan Pentland at FAWSL full time. So I always put my stuff on my account and it's also on that account. But I'm also currently doing Wolves Women's social media. So if you give them a follow, all those tweets are me trying to come up with creative things to put out. But yeah, that's mainly the two things that I'm doing at the minute.
Not a bad side to follow. Wolves this season, they are probably going to walk the league in Tier 3 and should go up this season because they were unfortunate not to go up last year. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. Rob, where can people find you? I know your Twitter especially is blowing up in the last kind of 2 months or so, but
well, yeah, I'm just very good at guessing things. Clearly, is what I've discovered in the last 2 months. You can find me at RJP Journalism for my usual journalism stuff, and also at the moment, if you're a Chelsea fan, check out the Believe in Chelsea and Believe in CFCW podcasts. My new podcast I've launched. I can't promise it will have anything that other podcasts don't have. I'm not going to pretend it does, but we do have a quiz where I get to regularly embarrass various people who say they know stuff about Chelsea. So that's quite entertaining.
Plenty to talk about Chelsea at the moment, that's for sure. Both men's and women's sides, so keep an eye on that one. And Emma, for yourself, where can people find all of your stuff in your socials?
Back with the podcast at the weekend. So it's MCW Fancast. It's a City podcast that follows the women. Funnily enough, we've got Dan on the podcast this week as well, so I'll be chatting to him tomorrow. So we'll be obviously going a little bit more in depth into the Keira Walsh situation and the summer saga and looking ahead to the season. Can't wait.
No, fingers crossed. If you see any of us at grounds, make sure you say hello. Obviously, from a United point of view, you'll see all of us on Saturday I don't even know what block we're in, but we're in the away end anyway. Predictions league stuff. Obviously, the deadline for that is Friday night. We've had some very interesting predictions sent across. I don't think some people understand supposed to be guessing the right score. That could completely shoot me in the face, and these people could be right. But we've had some very interesting scores. Some interesting scores, Emma, that you probably don't want to look at. We've had some big Arsenal wins.
Send them in. I could do with a laugh, to be honest. I could do with being cheered up, to be fair. I've got to spend mine yet. I'm going to have a look at that tonight. So, yeah.
Not a single Chelsea non-win yet, though, which is a bit. And I might just predict Chelsea not to win just because I can. There's one on there that's not a Chelsea win. I'm not very good with predictions because I can never predict United to lose. So I'm probably going to struggle this year. But there we are. So make sure you send that to either me, Barry, or the All for United account by Friday at midnight. Make sure you're checking out these people. Barry will be back on Friday, like I said before, with 2 debutants on the channel previewing Spurs. So make sure you check that out. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys very soon.